Hi friends, it's Brittany at Ink and Papyrus and welcome back to my channel. I recently and for the first time ever bound together a full-size journal. I was inspired because I received this magazine cover in the mail and I didn't want to chop it up or fold it, so I decided to bind together a journal full of 8.5 by 11 pages. There was no folding of any of these pages. And this required a completely different binding technique. I had to work out some of the hiccups, and I think I've finally come up with a way that will allow for even better hinging and opening of the pages and the covers that you see here. So let me show you what supplies we're going to be using today. You should have all of this at home, and none of this is going to require any sewing or fancy binding techniques or stitching, which I think you guys will all appreciate. We're going to make this very, very, very easy. Of course, the beauty in this project is that we can utilize full-size pages, whether it be vintage ledger pages you have, vintage pages that you don't want to alter, or pages from these beautiful paper packs. I am just making stacks of 4. I'm putting like pages in each pile. Each of these piles represents one signature. I think this journal is going to have 4 signatures. So once I have gotten all my pages together, I'm going to cut these down to 8.5 by 11. And I'll probably put about, since this is a thicker paper, I'll probably put about 8 to 10, maybe 12 pages per signature. So now that I have all of my pages sorted into signatures, I need to quickly make a cover. You can make a cover out of anything you want. That magazine page I showed you, which I backed with some really light chipboard to make it sturdy. The only stipulation we have is that we have to make a freestanding front and back cover. It can't already be something that is bound. So I am going to trim this down to 8.5 by 11. I like to make template pages so that I know exactly how large my cover as well as my signature pages need to be. And all I'm going to do is make a mark where to cut and take out my handy dandy paper cutter and chop away. So let me show you. I'm just going to use the blank side. I will be, like I said, lining the back, I think, with chipboard to just make it a little bit sturdier. This is the easiest way to do this, is just to have an existing template. I'm just making a mark here and a mark down here. Cut this down. Where's that little line? Alright, so we have our 8.5 by 11 front cover. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the back cover. Save those scraps, of course. We can find plenty to do with these later. So now that I have my front and my back cover cut to size, I'm going to back them with this really, really light chipboard. You could make it a firmer chipboard if you want. The thickness of the cover really doesn't matter. Anything will work with the binding that we are going to do. I am going to either glue these together or sew them down. If you don't have a light chipboard, you could obviously use a glue this to a box if you want some extra strength. The other thing you could do is go ahead and glue or sew a few pieces of thick cardstock together, and I think that will give you some good thickness. So I have the chipboard on to kind of reinforce the cardstock that I use. So I have a front and a back cover. I chose to just sew the cardstock to the chipboard because I love the look, but you can glue if you would like. So let's get down to trimming those pages and getting our signature pages ready to bind. Signature 1, 2, 3, and 4. And don't worry guys, we're gonna make this very easy. Take yourself 2 paper clips, I'm actually gonna do this, not even measuring. I have my 8.5 by 11 template here, which happens to be the standard size, copy paper size. Obviously, if you want bigger pages, that's totally fine. This technique for binding will work, okay? So if you have 9 by 12s, that's fine. If you want to bind in this entire cardstock and have a cover large enough, 12 by 12 I believe this is, that is a-okay too. So it does, I want to reinforce this, it does not matter. Just make sure you can have any size cover and signature pages you want, and this technique will still work. Okay, so I'm gonna do this a few pages at a time, just because I don't want my paper cutter to scream at me. I'm just gonna set the cover aside. And let me show you, this is what I always do when I am cutting down my signature pages. I grab a template, cut that template to whatever size I want my signature pages to be. I line them up, I paper clip them, and we cut. It is a little bit easier if your template's a little bit thicker. You could make another template, but this will do. Alright, and save those scraps, of course. They are great for any kind of project. I love making scraps I love making projects from my scraps. Maybe we'll have a scrap buster video to follow after this one. I don't know, just a thought. Alright, so we have our first signature, and it looks like it matches up with this cover just perfectly. I'm getting very excited. Very excited. This is going to be really, really, really pretty. I have 4 signatures done. They are all cut down to size. And look at this pretty, pretty pile of scraps. The wheels are turning. Of course, I'm going to use some of these scraps to make some embellishments for this journal. As you can see, I used a lot of different papers. I kept it to mostly earthy tones, did a lot of botanical things, pinks, reds, browns, golds. I got some vellum in there. So yeah, all right, let's get working on binding our full-size journal together. So for the next part of this video, you're going to want a few supplies. You need some fabric. You'll need a good sturdy hole puncher. And for the way I'm binding these pages, we're gonna want a stapler. Okay, and some glue. We'll get to that later. Okay, so the fabric you choose, it should be a little bit heavier. Like really pretty fabrics, like pretty drapes that are really thin, I don't think are gonna work all that well. You're gonna have a lot of glue bleeding through. It probably will be hard to punch through, and for the purposes of this project, you want a fabric that you can rip really well. And in my opinion, like those really pretty translucent fabrics, they just don't rip really well. Okay, so I have my signatures. Just pull out a single, whatever you want your first signature to be. Alright, and we're just going to pull out 1 signature's worth of pages for now. We are going to be doing these one at a time. These are definitely easier to work with if we attach our paper clips to them. Okay. So I've done this once before. There are a couple of nuances in the way that I chose to bind the pages. The first time that I said I would do things a little bit differently the second time. So bear with me here. We're going to be doing this together. Okay, so my pages are paper clipped together. I have my cover here. What we want to do is rip ourselves or however many signatures you have. So we want to rip ourselves, in this case, 4 swatches of fabric, and we want them to be the same width, okay? So start this, ripping it all the way down. All right. Okay. When we bind these, we are going to bind them by wrapping a piece of fabric around the paper. We want the fabric to cover a couple of inches extra this way and this way. And we're not going to be binding them like this, where your fabric is completely flush against the paper. We are going to be binding them in a way that the fabric wraps around the paper and there's a slight outpouching in the fabric. Do you see? Let me show you. Do you see this? This is where my paper ends, right here. Okay? You want there to be an outpouching of fabric beyond the edge of the paper, because that is where we are going to punch our holes. Now, first things first, the way I bound my pages together was to actually staple them together. Now, you want to think about this. The last time I bound my journal, I'm just going to tell you a couple of differences in the way I bound my first journal and why I'm doing this a little bit differently. And I think this will help you if you want to do an offshoot of this and not bind it exactly the way I'm showing you. These are just some considerations you want to have. I initially stapled the pages, okay, together, and then bound them with fabric and punched with the fabric flush against the paper and punched the holes. If you do it like this, I found that the pages don't hinge as well. If you bind them so that you have this outpouching of fabric and you punch the holes here on this outpouching and you bind it that way, the pages are more able to freely flip back and forth. I hope that made sense. The other problem with not punching the holes here and punching the holes directly through, obviously if you have a really sturdy hole punch, it should have no problem going through all these pages. It would be maybe made a little bit more difficult if you have, you know, lots and lots of pages in your signature. The real problem was that if you're punching the holes here, you're going to have an issue probably working around the staple placement. Another reason why I think it's best to staple the pages and then use the outpouching of fabric here to punch your holes and bind. Okay, so once your pages are flush with each other, we're going to go ahead and staple them. You don't want to staple too far over here, or else your pages you're not really going to be able to open the pages fully no matter how good your binding is. I hope that makes sense. You do want to apply enough staples that the pages are snugly together. So let's see, I'm gonna go here. Four. 5, 6. I think 6 is probably a pretty good number. Okay, so now we are going to take our fabric and we want to make sure that it's the exact right height. I guess we could always cut off scraps at the end, so not a huge deal. Just don't want to waste a bunch of fabric. Leave yourself some extra for sure. All right, now Remember what I said, we want to make sure our fabric is definitely wide enough to cover our staples and leave that outpouching of fabric. Okay, so here's where our gluage comes in. We are going to glue you can glue directly on the fabric. You may have a little bit more bleed through. Get some glue on those staples. Okay. You could smush this around to make sure. If you smush it around with your finger, you'll really make sure you're not going to get bleed through. But you're probably not going to see it very much anyway, so probably not a big deal. Just make sure it's good and secure. Okay, so here's the important part. We flip this over. We want to make sure we have plenty. Now this is too much room, okay? I don't think you're going to get a good look if you have that much fabric left over. Just for reference purposes, you don't have to measure this, but I just want to be able to tell you about how much fabric I'm leaving between the end of the fabric here and the beginning of the paper here. And that way we could at least maintain some consistency. So if I put this up against the edge of the paper, you may see that edge of the paper and the fabric here, I have 1 inch. 1 inch. That might be too much. Let's try 3/4 of an inch. It still looks like 1 inch to me. No, that's about 3/4. Let's do that. Let's do 3/4 of an inch. Okay. So make sure we have enough fabric to maintain that 3/4 of an inch space and cover our staples. And we're just gonna rip this right on down. All right. Remember, too much fabric is better than not enough. We could always just cover a little bit more here or rip off some pieces at the end. I'm gonna fold this, and we can obviously move it a little bit if we need. Just don't smush it down aggressively. Figure out right away if there's any moving you need to do. Okay, so that's less than 3/4 of an inch there. A little bit less than 3/4 of an inch. Honestly, I think that's gonna be a-okay. There we go. A little bit less than, maybe about 1/2 inch. Yeah. Somewhere, this is between 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. I think that'll be perfect. Let's make sure we're nice and secure. Okay. All right. Now, let's cut off our excess. This is where the good fabric shears come into place. Okay, nice. Okay, I think this is gonna look really, really good. I'm gonna take these paper clips off and we are gonna do the exact same thing with the other 3 signatures. And just to show you how it kind of looks so far, you see the pages are, you know, turn pretty good. You know, they open almost all the way. That's what you want to see. If you're struggling to open your page like this, you know you probably put the staples too far in, which, you know, you can always take the staples out, remove them, and redo them, but just to kind of show you how things should look at this point. Okay, so I have finally bound together my 4 signatures. This is what they should look like. Our fabric is secured to each of our signatures. We have a little out pouching here. Now we are going to punch holes in all of our signatures. What I'm going to do, I'm not measuring anything out for the first holes. I am simply putting this together, okay? Instead of matching up our spines, now ideally, you know, the out pouching should be about the same size. But what we want to do is make sure that the paper is flush together, okay? Instead of trying to make this all line up, because realistically they are going to be a little bit discrepant, that's okay. We want to make sure that our pages here are all lined up, okay? Once we do that, we are going to, I'm going to try and punch these holes all at the same time. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. You could punch them individually and then make a mark going through. Like if I punched a hole here, after I was done punching my holes, I would take my marker. This is how I think I did it the last time. I took my marker, went through the hole of the next one, and then I had marks so I knew exactly where to punch the holes next time. I'm gonna try and bypass that because I think it'll just be faster to do it this way. But you want to make sure these are all lined up the entire time. So I'm gonna put my hole punch at the 1/8, okay? And I'm gonna put the fabric here, and it'll come out of that first one. I think I'm gonna make 6 holes. Make sure you're behind that line, behind the line of your paper. Start pretty close to the top, but not all the way. Okay, that went through really, really easily. So I think I'm just gonna continue on to, you wanna try and punch a hole the same distance. Like if the paper edge is here and you punch a hole really close to it, don't punch a hole all the way out here the next time. Does that make sense? Okay, that's 8 holes. I think that's probably good. I'm gonna set this down. It went through all the fabric just fine. Okay. So now I'm gonna get a large needle and some cording, and we're just gonna be binding these together. It's really easy, I promise. So I grabbed some embroidery floss and a needle. You don't need to use embroidery floss, you could use cording. But you want it to be, you know, thicker, I guess. You want it to have some sturdiness to it. This is like my favorite needle for binding things. All right. I'm going to tie this off. Now, the way I'm going to bind this and show you, we are going to be putting another piece of fabric over this one to secure the cover and to it's gonna secure the front and the back cover and wrap all the way around. So if you didn't like this, if you didn't like this fabric particularly, or you're not wild about the color of the embroidery floss, it's really okay, because the way I'm going to show you to bind this, you're not even going to be able to see this, okay? So don't worry about the look of this. You're not going to be able to see it. Give yourself plenty of extra room or extra embroidery floss or cording, because we're going to be going through these holes several times to ensure that it is securely bound. Okay, so it doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start at the bottom here, and I'm just going to go up through all these holes. Okay, real scientific, right? Like, huh? Okay, and you're just going to take this and you're just going to make a little loop, left over right, and right over left, and left over right, and right over left. And we're going to be doing the same thing to tie the embroidery floss off once we're done. Okay, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to be able to see this. It's pretty snug, and see, these pages still hinge pretty perfectly. Okay, all right, so we went up through, so now we're going to come down. Okay, and make sure it doesn't get caught up there. And I'm just gonna go again through. See, this is real scientific here. There are plenty of different ways you could do this. I'm just doing like a zigzag thing. Again, it's not going to show, so we don't need to like do a special like binding that's aesthetically pleasing. Again, this is going to be covered. So I'm just going in through each of the holes and then back up, and then we'll probably go around. Just make sure you're getting each of the fabric tabs. See, I missed that one there. All right. And if you're a little paranoid like me, once you have them bound the first time, just make sure that they still hinge well, which actually that doesn't look half bad. If you didn't want to put a full-size cover on and this was thick enough paper, you like, honestly, I don't think it would look half bad. You could kind of leave it as is. But do you see that? Like, it hinges perfectly. I'm totally happy with that. It doesn't seem stuck. That's why you want to leave that little out pouching and punch your holes into the fabric as opposed to the paper, because it allows them to hinge really nicely. So we went in, came out. We're going to go back in here. Just maintain the kind of zigzag appearance. Make sure it doesn't get caught on anything. I'm really excited about this, guys. I never really considered making a full-size journal, but I think aside from the fact that I love some of these large cardstock pages, I have some more vintage pages that they aren't in the signatures in this video, but I do like, oh, that actually has a really cool look too when you come back around. I wouldn't mind just kind of, but I mean the pages are really flimsy, so I'm gonna want to put a pretty hefty cover on this. But even if I didn't, like, it would be pretty cool, like even the exposed spine just as is. But I have some like vintagey pages that I maybe don't want to chop up and would really like to just be able to put them in as is. Okay, so you see something changed there. I think I know what I did. I'm gonna go back through here and take this out. I think what happened was I went through, instead of going, so I went, let me show you, I'm not explaining this well. Let me see if I can get this back out without the embroidery floss fraying, because I want to show you what I did to create that different look. Okay, obviously this looks different. I did something very different. And I think I know what I did. And I want to show you. I don't mind the look. I don't like it as well as good. And in case you want to do an exposed spine, I want you to be able to see what I did. Oh, I'm messing it up. Okay. See the difference between here and here? I think what I did was, instead of going out and then back in like this, I think what I accidentally did was put my needle through here and pulled. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, that's definitely what happened. So instead, what my intention was to go out and then just straight back in, pull your needle here. Don't put it back through that circle, that loop. Take it out to get this look. If this is what you want, which I think looks nicer, all you need to do, out and then back in that hole. In, no, out and back in. Sorry, I'm probably confusing you guys. Not putting it back through there, going back in like this and going back in. We're gonna get to the top and tie this off and back in and back in and back in. That really creates a really cool look, right? Aside from the mess up here where I know I had to have gone like through the loop. I'll have to like rewind this and watch. But even still, like, I think that actually looks really cool. I've never done a binding that looks like that before. All right, so to tie this off, I'm just gonna keep my needle on. I'm gonna go through this loop. Okay. And all we need to do is, I'm gonna cut the needle off. There are several ways you could do this. Just gonna pull it. Oh, I didn't leave myself very much of a tail here. I'm just gonna tie something off here. Something that resembles a knot. Cinch it down. All right. Cut that off. Okay, so now we have our book that hinges like this. Now, see, look how nice that hinges. Look how nice that is. You're not getting any of that, like, ooh, where you really have to like train or like push down the pages. I think the placement of the staples was good. It might be a little tight there, but other than that, I think that looks really, really good. Really, really good. Okay, so now here comes the fun part. We're gonna bind our book together. What we're gonna wanna do, so look, well, decide what you want to be the front and what you want to be the back. We're gonna line this up. Again, line this up with the edge of your signature pages and not with the fabric. Make sure you have it the way you want it. And then all we're gonna do is take another piece of fabric and glue it from the fabric to the spine to the back of the cover. So I'm gonna run off camera quick and get a piece of fabric that I want to be the final thing. Obviously you still will be able to see the brown fabric poking through inside the book. So you can use the same type of fabric or you can use something different. I think I'm gonna use something different, so I will be right back. So this is a bold choice, but I think I'm gonna use this old shirt I have. I'm a little concerned that maybe the fabric is too thin, in which case I will use some of the heftier brown fabric I had and go over it. I think I'm gonna incorporate this like middle, this point of the shirt where the fabric meets. This might be a bad, oh, it rips good at least. It might be a bad choice of fabric for this particular project. You do want something that's pretty sturdy. That's why I kind of have my doubts. But let's just see. Let's see what we can do with it. I really like that. I think I specifically picked it because I think it looks so good with the red thread. I am going to put another piece of brown fabric over this though, because that brown stuff is like really, really sturdy. What we could do for sure, especially since I have that red thread in my machine, is sew the red. If you have a dressy fabric you like, but it's not sturdy, take the dressy fabric and sew it to your sturdy fabric, and then that way you'll be gluing the sturdy fabric to the binding. Oh, I think I like that idea. That is exactly what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna line this up, make sure we line this up just like this, and put it down, and we're going to be applying glue all along the cover and this fabric portion. We'll see, no worries. Very, very easy. It just makes a lot more sense to show you than try and talk to you, like telling you without demonstrating it is just makes it harder than it has to be. Okay, make sure this is cinched. Pull on it. Pull, pull, pull. You can do a little bit of decorating here if the bleed through. I should have told you, like, smush it down with your finger if you're really worried about the bleed through. All right, so we have this on. If you really want to make sure it's secure, you can get those big gator clips and apply those. Just otherwise try not to move it around too much. Okay, ooh, I love this. I think it'll look better as I gotta even this out. This was a hack job I did here, and it'll look better like once this is dry. It should dry clear. If there's still like some bleed through, I'm just gonna put some decorations here to cover the glue beads. I have some little die cuts and some other really cool things. All right, so you saw just leaving it like this is gonna be a little bit precarious. We probably should do something with the inside cover. Do you see that? Okay, to truly make this secure, what I recommend is gluing the inside, the last page in your journal to the front cover, or to the last page to the back cover, and then your first page to the front cover. Do you see? Or else there will just be that laxity. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is continue the gluage. All right, make sure you get in there, add some extra glue there, make this really secure. All right. I think this is just the best, most secure way to go about doing this, or else you risk the book coming apart, which that would be no fun, would it? Okay, so I'm gonna glue this down, try and line that page up with the cover really well. And then it just becomes one with the book. Does that make sense? One with the book. Okay. And we'll do some trimming of the fabric spine there at the end. I know it's still not exactly even. Our pages are still hinging really nicely. Okay. Very nice. Okay, now we're gonna do the same exact thing with the back page. And obviously this back cover is gonna be, the inside's gonna be really pretty. We're gonna wanna do something to decorate the front. Since we just have that blank page, we could just put a piece of cardstock right over it, or you could put a little bit more thought into the decoration. There's obviously some gluage we're gonna wanna cover up. All right, let's finish the actual cover, which is why you're probably watching this video. You don't need my help decorating the inside of a journal cover. You all know how to do that by now. So I really just want to focus on making sure you guys are comfortable binding a full-size journal. Like I said, aside from just having a full-size page you get to decorate, it's so cool when you have pages that you don't want to fold or chop up. Actually being able to put those in your journal as is something really, really cool. Sometimes we get certificates or mementos that we don't want to necessarily fold or chop up, and it's the perfect way to incorporate them in your journal. Aside from, you know, the good old just clipping it in, which nothing wrong with that, but this is a pretty cool alternative. All right, line it up, get a nice crease in that page. Work it out. Work out any glue bubbles that may be there. Don't put too much tension on it, or else you'll rip the page, but oh, lovely. Absolutely lovely. I am loving the way this looks, guys. Okay, hold on, my only complaint I don't love the way that last page looks. What can we do to fix that? Because this is not working for me. There's like a big ripple in it. Oh, why are you drying already? Don't dry already, don't dry already. There's something about the way the... Okay, what if we do this? Instead of folding it out to meet it, let's put our glue down. Let's put some more glue down. Okay, so instead of folding this over to meet the cover, we're gonna fold the cover over to meet the page. How about that? I know it sounds like just semantics, but I think that may work. I think it's the distance, that crease there is making it look weird. Let's do that. Let's try this. Make sure you're not gluing anything else unintentionally together. Okay. Okay, that's gonna work much better. See, and then now we can fold this page down. Okay, do you see now there's not that weird gap in between? There was a really weird gap in between the seam of the spine and this back page. I did not like that. That looks much better. Wow guys, I am really thrilled with how this came out, and I actually cannot wait to use this journal. So let's just take a quick gander. Again, I think everything is moving well. That back front page is really the only hiccup we had. I hope somehow I ripped this. We'll have to cover that up with something. That's okay. That's what page decorations are for, right? I love the vellum. I love how the there's definitely room, and the signature pages hinge really nicely between each other. This doesn't look nearly as awkward. If you have, let's see, I have a bone folder here. Might be good to like spread this gluage and get that glue in that darn little crease that's bothering me. Get out the bubbles and all the weirdness. I'm really loving this, guys. This is gonna look even better when I'm gonna grab some die cuts and go over the... I love the red thread and the red spine looks amazing. I'm just gonna put some little bits and bobs over here to cover up that bleed through. And I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit more decorating to the cover. But I hope you guys got everything you needed to out of this video. I hope you feel very comfortable binding together a full-size journal and are thinking about binding a full-size one for yourself. So guys, I hope you found value in this. Please, if you did, hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you the next time. Wait, one more thing. I have to show you guys this. I found this red lace, and is this not perfect for this journal? Absolutely perfect. I probably will put a few more embellishments over top of it, but I am in love with this. So I'm gonna put red lace on the front and the back to hide all that gluage, and this is gonna be spectacular. Sorry, so this is it for the last time. Thanks so much for joining me.